Hello, this is Casey from Casey Grandpa Tech, where your geeky grandpa talks tech, tech reviews, travel, and much more. Listen, today I want to talk to you about mobility scooters. And the top 10 things you need to look out for whether you're renting or buying one for yourself. So let's get to that right now. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. And we'll get started right now. So I'm going to go over a bunch of things about scooters that you may not know, and some of the things you need to be considerable knowledge about before you buy one or rent one at a park or someplace while you're at an event. Of course, one of the first questions you have to ask yourself is what kind of scooter. There are obviously four-wheelers and three-wheelers, and there's hard wheel and soft wheel or inflated tires, and that will change the ride. So whether if you're going to be on concrete or whether you're going to be on grass, you need to know what kind of scooter you need to be riding. Now, the other thing that you may want to consider is there's various types. There's four-wheeler and three-wheeler. There are multi-terrain scooters, and there's foldable that you can put in your car. So there's all kinds of scooters that you can talk about, and let's talk about some of the things that you may not be aware of. First thing, when you're considering a scooter, what's the first thing you need to do? Well, first thing, what is the weight of the person who's going to be doing it? Because scooters come in rate classes. Under 300 pounds, 300 pounds, and over, and then 600 pounds. And then there's even dual scooters where you can put two people on the same scooter, which is really, really cool. But that has its problems. Now, so some of the things you're going to have to consider, of course, in about using a scooter, let's say a mobility scooter like this, that folds. Well, if you're going to be just using it around town, or you're going to be going and you're going to be using it in your car or van, you're going to transport it, there's really no issue that you have to worry about. But if you're going to be traveling, whether domestically or internationally on a flight, you need to be considering a few things. First thing is FAA has very strict rules about mobility scooters and their batteries. So you're going to have to know all of the current rules from the FAA of what you can and cannot bring. So before you even consider buying a scooter that you're going to be traveling with, you want to ask about that scooter that you're looking at and asking, is it FAA approved? Now, the next thing you need to ask, of course, is what type of battery. There's lead acid and there's lithium. Okay, each one has its own regulation, of course. Now, lithium batteries are highly, highly regulated. You're only allowed to bring on a battery that has up to 300 amperes, whether it's one battery or two batteries on the same scooter. So if you have more than that on the scooter, it's not going to be allowed on the aircraft because of all the regulations, because they've had problems with them exploding, catching on fire, and things like that because of the air pressure changes. So you will need to consider that. The other thing you'll have to consider is bringing it on the aircraft and having it damaged. So before you do check it, you want to make sure that you take pictures of it before and after and look at it carefully. I mean, I have one friend of mine who came back and one of the wheels was missing from the scooter because when it went through baggage claim, it got totally wrecked. So those are the things you need to consider. Now, let's suppose you go to the park, a local park like Six Flags, or you're traveling and you're going to Disney World. Well, if you bring your own scooter, there are some things you need to be aware of. When you get on the park's property, you are totally responsible for that scooter. The scooter company that may not come on the park to help you. So if it breaks down, you are stuck. You have to manually push that scooter off the property or leave it in the park. And there have been multiple occasions, if you check the blogs, where people have actually had the scooter break down and the park employees would not help them, and they ended up leaving the scooter or abandoning the scooter in the property. So those are things you need to consider when bringing your own scooter onto the park. Now, of course, you can rent a scooter from the park itself, assuming that there's scooters available when you get there to rent. So those are some of the negatives that could happen when you rent a scooter. Now, what else could happen? Now, like for instance, I'm going to take an example of what happened with us. We travel a lot, and I don't bring my own scooter on these trips when I'm going by aircraft. Just won't do it. When I'm going locally or going to one of the local states, I'll bring my mobility scooter, and it's no issue. But when I go to some place, let's say Disney or Universal, you should make sure that you contact the park and find out what is the recommended scooter company for them. And why I say that? Because every scooter company's rental agreement is different. And if you get into problems, how are you going to deal with it? For instance, one scooter company told me that when I had to sign for the scooter when I received it, and I had to sign for it when I left. Well, that's very inconvenient because, they want to drop the scooter off at 10 a.m., but I'm not arriving for my flight till 2 p.m. That's not going to work. And if my flight is at 7 p.m. that night, I want to use the scooter as long as I need to until I leave for the airport. So that kind of a contract doesn't work for a lot of people. For instance, but another company, like I rented from Disney's contracted scooter company, they were very, very gracious. Now, they said, when you get there, the scooter will be waiting for you. Just go to the concierge. You can pick it up. And when you finish with the scooter, just drop it off at the concierge desk and you're set to go. Now, what was even nicer, because we were staying on Disney property, as long as we let the mobility scooter know, we could drop it off at any of the Disney hotels where we happened to be. So we were staying at the Port Orleans, and we spent the day in the park. But the next day, we decided, since our flight wasn't until 7 p.m. that night, we were going to have a morning. We were going to go to the Polynesian. And because it's Christmas time, and then we wanted to go to the Floridian and look at the gingerbread house, and so on and so forth. And then eventually, we wanted to drop the scooter off someplace before we took a Uber or the Disney shuttle to the airport. So that particular company let us say, as long as we told them where it was on Disney property, that was great. But let's suppose that you're not. You're going to be park hopping. You're going to be going one day Disney, one day Universal, one day to a show. Now those mobility, that folding scooter we talked about, makes more sense. Because those, you can fold up. You can put them in the Uber or Lyft, whatever you happen to be using, and you'll be able to do that. Now that's great. But again, just remember what I said to you about liability. You're liable for that scooter, so make sure you buy insurance with it. Make sure you keep it charged. So if the charge starts to drop down, ask if you can plug it in somewhere for a while you're on a ride or something. In my case, the Disney scooter that I rented, the Disney employees will plug it in for you while you're waiting, allowing you to get a charge. But I didn't have any issues because it lasted all day. So those are some of the things you need to be looking out for. Now, so basically, let's go over. First, you need to choose what type of scooter you want, whether it be 3-wheel or 4-wheel. Is it going to be foldable or not? Number 2 is, what is the weight of the person going to be using it? Okay, obviously, if the person is young, 3-wheel can work for them. But if the person is older and needs more stability, a 4-wheel will be better. Do you plan to take it on terrain that's not even, such as going to the beach or going in a picnic area? You may want an all-terrain one. The next thing you want to consider is, if you're going to be renting it, what, again, is the contract? What are the rules of the use of it? And when do you have to give it back? When can you pick it up? Things of this nature. Some things you may not have thought about. And lastly, if you decide to take your own scooter on in an aircraft, make sure you know that number one, that it is able to be taken, that the battery type is one that the airlines will accept, and that you pre-register your scooter that you're going to be taking with you. The airline needs to know ahead of time that you're going to be using it. It has to be done. It's just one of the things that we have to live with today. Now, personally, I happen to be using a Solax transforming automatic scooter, and I'm not putting a pin for them. I've been using it now for a couple of years, and the battery is now starting to go, and I'm going to have to replace it. And they cost about $600. That's another thing that you need to consider, is depending upon the battery, will be the cost. Lead acid is less expensive to replace, whereas lithium batteries last longer, but they also are more expensive to replace. For instance, changing the batteries on a lithium battery might only cost you $100, whereas lithium batteries will cost you $600. So I hope I've covered some of the bases and answered some of your questions about mobility scooters. Until next time, this is Casey from Casey Grandpa Tech. Again, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share it with your friends, let them know about this. And I'll be back with other types of how-to tech reviews and such like that in the future. Until next time, you have a great day.